Welcome to Your Unapologetic Life, the podcast for the woman who's done crying herself to sleep after the breakup or divorce, and she is ready to figure out what this next chapter is going to look like. You're not trying to get your old life back. You're asking, what do I want? And how do I want to live on my terms? I'm Morgan Barkis, empowerment coach, speaker, and author, and this podcast is your space to rise, reclaim your power, and live unapologetically. One of the fastest ways to get your power back after a breakup or divorce is to take control of your money. When I was a therapist, for the short time that I was, there was a woman in my office who was pacing the room like a caged animal. She was married to a man she despised. She was basically waiting for him to die. He was older than her. I think she married him mostly for money. Turns out she couldn't stand him. She said she hated everything about him, even down to the TV shows he watched. She was very unhappy and she felt stuck, trapped. And I asked her, I said, well, you can leave. I mean, you don't have to stay, right? And she said, Morgan, what am I supposed to do? I haven't worked in 25 years. What am I supposed to just go and work at a gas station? When she made that comment, as I watched her pace around my office, I thought, this will never be me. I will always make sure I have my own money. And I did. And even then, I wasn't always great with money. So let me tell you a little bit about my personal money story. Low key, I was hoping a man would come in and fix things, be financially stable enough and generous enough that I wouldn't have to worry about money. And basically, I realized at some point, no one was coming. No one was going to come and fix this. It was my life, and I needed to face the facts. And I was about to turn 40. I was living in a small apartment in Kentucky. I was a a studio manager for a major fitness franchise in a small town in Kentucky. And I wasn't making a load of money, and I was financially stable-ish. I was not making a lot of money, and even though the apartment was under $1,000 and I didn't really have many other expenses, there were times where I had $24 in my checking account for that had to get me through like 4 or 5 days. I mean, it wasn't great, okay? 0 in savings. Just really didn't have a handle on things. And I finally decided, no, no. This New Year's resolution is to face the facts when it comes to my finances, get real, figure out how to have a more abundant mindset when it comes to money, and to really get a handle on how to budget and be smarter about money. Start investing. And I'll tell you what, once I made those intentions, the universe shifted things. It was actually prior to New Year's that I decided to actually get started. So it was in December that I wrote down basically assets over liabilities. And I really just listed out every single thing I owed: student loans, any medical bills. The $300 I owed a girlfriend of mine that helped me years ago was something else that I always knew I wanted to pay her back. And I knew I wanted to, I just didn't know how or when, and I wrote down everything. I got Dave Ramsey's, budgeting app. I started to read books, and then I ended up attracting a better job into my life where I made way more money and finally had proper health and dental benefits, so it was just like when it's like that saying that something about, like, the journey of a million miles or 1,000 miles starts with one step, or if you take the one step, the rest of the steps will appear. I think they're two different quotes. You get the idea. And it was really me just taking that first step, and then the next step started to appear, and then the next step started to appear, and then I met someone at my job who was really good with money and helped me understand things better and talk to me about investing, and it was just like one thing led into the next when I finally decided to take my power back. And I wasn't in a situation where some that you might be, where you have gotten out of a relationship or went through a divorce, and now all of a sudden you're trying to figure out money on your own for the first time. I don't know, it doesn't really matter. It's just that money can be something that you avoid, and rather than avoid it, it's something that can be managed, and you can become it can be part of your superpower, and it can be something you feel really confident about. And you look at someone who, unlike the woman in my office that day when I was a therapist way back when, I look at someone like Samantha Jones's character. That's who I model my life after. Like, she is this independent, self-sufficient, unfiltered woman who built her career, was just so in one of the shows, when she moved into the meatpacking district in New York City, and she said something about paying, I think she paid like $4 or $5,000 a month for her apartment. And at that time, I mean, I was in my late 20s, and I don't know, I paid for my apartment, I think it was like $8.95 a month or something on the south side of Chicago, or not Chicago, Minneapolis. And I mean, I didn't even make that much money in a month, let alone she was paying that a month for her apartment in New York. And I was like, that is bananas. And now, all these years later, and I look at apartments now that I live in Chicago, and I think, well, I mean, someday I could probably afford $4,000 a month. It's different. And again, she's my aspiration because she was her own boss and she made things happen, and she was just so confident. And I just liked that even if things seemed scary, she went for it, and she really took charge of her own life. And that's how I want you to think about your money. Even if it feels scary right now, even if you don't know where to start, this is one step in reclaiming your power. The few people, if you're a follower of my podcast and if you listen to past episodes, if you remember the episode with Cindy, she was fortunate enough that her divorce was very amicable. They split things down the middle. She was not left financially destitute. Whereas when I interviewed Miss Emily, her husband out of nowhere just said, I don't want to be married. And he was the breadwinner, and she was left with nothing. And now, thank goodness, she took charge of her own life, picked herself back up after um, after the shock of her husband out of nowhere wanting a divorce, and her being left with a house she couldn't pay for. And now she bought her own house and has her, she had to take her power back. It doesn't really matter. I mean, for you, it matters. I mean, if you're going through it right now and you're going through a breakup or a divorce, and you're like, yeah, okay, Morgan, I have $0 to my name and I don't know what's going to happen. I can't even imagine the stress. I've been there. I've oh, the amount of mornings I used to wake up, and as soon as I realized I was conscious, I would have like a very panicky feeling and my heart would start racing. I had a ton of anxiety over money for many years. And it wasn't until that December before 2020, um, before my New Year's resolution was official, if you will, because of the new year, um, I really struggled with money. I avoided it. I It was a weak point. I found it to be something undesirable about me. I would even think about dating and go, now who's going to want to be with me? I have all the student loan debt, and I don't have my finances in order. I mean, for me, it was really empowering to take back my power when it came to my finances, and just really got honest about looking at it, my debt, my income, my savings. I also even these years later, I'll be turning 45 soon. I'm still working through some of my money stories and rewriting those stories, reframing those stories, and writing affirmations to counteract the stuff that hasn't been helpful through the years. And you can look through your money story and find out, what did you learn as a kiddo about money and who did you learn it from? And are these beliefs keeping you small or making you live in that lack mentality? And this is how the coaching comes in my program. When I work with women, the women and I, we walk through their money stories. We uncover limiting beliefs and making sure that they in the future make empowered decisions and create a plan that fits their reality and really catapults them into the next chapter with them feeling powerful and fully present with their money and fully in control of what's next. And what I want to challenge you with is, write down, do what I did when, before, like I said, before the clock even turned over and, your New Year's resolutions were official. I thought, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I may as well go into the new year with my eyes wide open. So it was December of 2019 that I wrote down every single debt, every bill, every obligation, no matter how small, and see it on paper, truly see it on paper. And okay, I can do this. This is not out of my control. I have to figure out a plan here and conquer this. And I did every single, except my student loans. That was pretty hefty. I'm still working on those. I paid off my truck. I gave that $300 to my friend. Out of nowhere one day, I texted her and I said, "What is your PayPal or Venmo handle? I have some money to send you." And she said, "Morgan, I knew you were good for it. I knew it. I trusted you." And it was, like I said, it was years later and it felt so good. And it's the power of not avoiding. Avoidance is not in your power. Clarity is in your power. The situation is still the same, whether you avoid it or you put it all out there. When you put it all out there, you can see it, you can make a plan, you feel empowered, and your power is back. Money is power. And when you take control of your finances, you take back your freedom, your choices, and your future. Now, if you're ready to stop playing small, you're going to get your Samantha Jones energy on and start rebuilding your confidence. That's where I come in. Let's chat. You can book a discovery call with me. The link is in the show notes. I'll help you uncover your money story, reclaim your power, and rebuild your sparkle. Thanks for listening to Your Unapologetic Life. If this episode spoke to you, please share it with another woman you care about. Also, follow the show, rate, and review. Are you ready to go deeper? Click the link in the show notes to get instant access to my free video, 5 questions to ask yourself now that you're single again. If you're thinking, I want to hire Morgan as my coach, you can also find the discovery call link in the show notes. Let's build this next chapter together.